Hi class, today we are on Saxon Math, Book 4, Lesson 100, and today we're going to be constructing pyramids. So, first things first, I want you to remember that these typical shapes that you've been studying and looking at probably since preschool, those are two-dimensional shapes. They're flat, they have no depth or no height to them. We have a length and a width, and that's it. Geometric solids that we've been talking about take these shapes and give them that third dimension, which we either call height or depth. So there we've got a square that we've turned into a cube. We have a triangle that I'm going to attempt to turn into a triangular prism here. This one for some reason is the hardest for me to draw, but not too bad I think. So triangle we've turned into a triangular prism, and then a circle we could turn into a cone, we could turn it into a cylinder, we could turn it into a sphere, and actually that one looks even worse than my triangular prism there. Maybe it's better if I kind of flatten that circle a little, give it a dotted line. So these are just pictures, so they're still kind of flat, but they're supposed to represent a three-dimensional object that has depth, that has length, width, and height, or length, width, and depth. Those are the dimensions that we're talking about, measurements that we can find. All right. So in our last lesson, you guys created prisms. You created rectangular prisms, you created a cube, and you created two triangular prisms. In this lesson, we are going to be doing the same thing with pyramids. So again, if you're in my class, you've got this page. It is lesson activity 46. And you are going to need to pause the video and cut those two shapes out as carefully, as precisely as possible. Remember from yesterday, the more careful you are with the cutting, the easier the rest of this lesson goes. So go ahead, pause me there, take care of that, and then come on back. And again, this process is just like our last lesson. We're going to start by folding every single line, every dotted line, every solid line. Get everything kind of pre-folded so that when it comes time to put it together, it just falls into place. So I'm folding all of my lines here. Careful with those little tabs. They're kind of small and you can get them folded too far or not far enough. So you want to make sure you're right on the lines. And then I kind of think this is easier to build than a prism because we have our base, our square base there. And then we have two sides that have flaps and two sides that don't. So I would start with one side that has a flap, one side that doesn't have a flap. I'm going to pinch it together like that, and then take my little piece of tape and attach them. Woo! Drop in my pyramid. Then I'll do the same thing. Take my flap there, stick my finger inside through the hole there and get a little piece of tape so that I can attach that edge. And then I'll take this side that has flaps and I'll fold them in so that they can fit inside. Like I said yesterday, I kind of like it inside. If you need to tape the flaps on the outside, that's okay too. You will still end up with a pyramid. Okay. See, I always think this one goes quicker. So there we have our little pyramid that you can add to yesterday's collection of shapes. Remember, we are going to be talking about these in class this week, so you might want to keep them on hand at least until we're done talking about them. So there is our pyramid. And we're going to make another pyramid. Notice this one has a triangular base. So once again, let's pre-fold. Remember, you can always pause the video if you are still working on the first one and I'm going way too fast or way ahead of you. Just pause that video, catch up, and then join me again. So I've almost got all those little tabs folded here. All right, there we go. So now I've got everything pre-folded there, and I'll do the same thing. I'm going to take the piece that has 2 tabs and stand that up, and then take the piece that doesn't have any tabs, and I'm going to pinch it on the inside to kind of just hold it together, and then take a little piece of tape and stick it together like that. Then I'll do the same thing on the other side. My tab is folded in, and I'm going to take that piece. Now I have this one. I could just tape on the outside, or I want to fold it good and then just kind of puzzle piece fit it in there if I want it to be on the inside. And mine's folding a little bit there, but that's okay because we're just going to tape it together. Tape all your edges. And now we have another pyramid. This one has a triangular base. Okay. All right. So today we only have 2 shapes. So we're going to talk about some of these lesson practice questions together, but I am going to be reviewing this when I see you in class later this week as well. So let's start with this pyramid, the one that has the square base. This is the one I'm talking about as I ask you these questions. So question A, we're on page 632 if you want to read these for yourself to follow along. Question A says, how many faces does the pyramid have, and what are their shapes? So we'll start here, the base, that's one face. And then we have 2, 3, 4, 5 total faces. What are the shapes of the faces? We have a square, and then we have 4 triangles. So 1 square, 4 triangles, those are our faces of this pyramid. Question B, does the pyramid have any parallel faces? So we're going to talk about this more when I see you, but if you notice my prism, notice how the top here is parallel to the bottom. The sides are parallel to each other. These sides are parallel to each other. That's what we're talking about here. Does the prism have any parallel faces like that? No, it doesn't. None of its faces are parallel to each other. Question C, does the pyramid have any parallel or perpendicular edges? So back to my prism here, lots of parallel edges. Each of those sides the whole way around. And perpendicular too, because this edge is going to be perpendicular to both that one, and the 2 edges on the top as well. So looking at the pyramid, do we have any parallel edges? Yes, just on the bottom though. Those 2 and those 2. What about perpendicular edges? Again, just on the bottom. We have this one that's perpendicular to this one, and perpendicular here. And then the same thing on this side, perpendicular, perpendicular. None of these edges are perpendicular. They're all smaller than 90-degree angles. All right, in this pyramid, what types of angles are formed by the intersecting edges? So I just said they're smaller than 90 degrees. That was a big hint there. What does that mean? What do we call angles that are smaller than 90 degrees? They're acute little angles. So we have acute angles formed by all of these edges, whereas these are 90-degree angles at the bottom. So right angles and acute angles. All right, take a look at this pyramid. This is the one that has the triangular base. And we might have some different answers here because we don't have quite the same shapes. So question E says, how many faces does this pyramid have and what are their shapes? So we have the base, that's 1. And then here we only have 2, 3, 4. Remember this pyramid had 5 faces. This pyramid only has 4 faces. That's interesting. I wonder why that is. We'll talk about that when I see you in class. And what are their shapes? Again, we have those 3 triangles, but notice this base is a triangle as well. I wonder if that has anything to do with the number of faces, the fact that the shape is different. 4 faces, each of them are triangles. They appear to be equilateral triangles, in fact. So that's kind of cool. And does the pyramid have any parallel faces? Remember, the faces of my rectangular prism are parallel here. Does this have any parallel faces? No, it does not. Does the pyramid have any parallel or perpendicular edges? Do you see any parallel or perpendicular? Not like this. This one had both parallel and perpendicular. This one does not appear to. It's a different type of pyramid. In the pyramid above, or that I'm holding here, what type of angles are formed by intersecting edges? So again, this pyramid had acute little angles and it had some right angles because of that square base. What about this one? What type of angles do we have? They're all really little. What do we call little angles? They're acute little angles. They're all less than 90 degrees, so they are acute. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of today's lesson. It's now time for you to work on your written practice, which begins on page 633 in your textbook. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you again soon.